So this is it. Right now we have a basic platformer control. One thing that you'll notice when running around is if we move and hit a wall and we're still holding down the move button, we're going to stick to that wall until we let go. The reason for that is because we're still applying force, or we're adding velocity in this direction, so there's friction between the wall and the player, so much so that gravity cannot overcome that force. There are two ways that we can fix this. One is kind of a workaround, the other is the actual fix. And I'll show you both methods. So, one way is we can add an additional feature to our player controller script. So again, if you play currently and you jump, you'll notice that you're able to still move while in the air, like change directions and such. And this is how most platformers work, so you probably want your game to be like this, but in real life, that is not possible. So, you know, if you want your game to be more like the jump physics in real life, or something, then you would be able to jump and not move in the air, or if you're jumping, you would kind of keep that trajectory. You wouldn't be able to go, nope. So, yeah, let's go ahead and add that feature in as an option. I'm going to disable this public part because we don't need it to be public anymore. And I'm going to go ahead and make a new public variable of type boolean called can move in air. And it's going to default to true. How do I always misspell true and false? It's ridiculous. Right, so, and all we got to do in here is, in the move function, if not can move in air, then we're going to return, which means don't run the rest of this function. So, if can move in air is set to false, we're not going to be able to move. Actually, if not can move in air, and not is grounded. There we go. So if this option is set to false, and we are currently not on the ground, then we won't be able to move. So keep that checked on. We'll have the same movement as before. And if we check it off, yeah, you're not able to change directions in the air. So if we, with our new control scheme, if we hit that guy, it's actually kind of hard now, we will just fall because we're no longer able to apply extra force in this direction. So that's one way to fix it. But say you want to be able to move in the air, you'll have to use this other method, which I'm going to show you right now. And that is to apply a custom physics material 2D to the collider. So let's go ahead and create a new physics 2D material, and I'm going to call this one slick. And we're just going to decrease the friction to 0 and apply that to the wall. Make sure that's checked on. And now if we play, and I'm just going to run into the wall and continue holding like I did before, and you see I just slipped down, and that's because we have no friction. So even though we're still applying force against the wall and the player, the surface is slick, so we just slip off. So that's pretty cool. You'll notice, however, that since this guy doesn't have a physics material, he's just got the default, and this guy has the slick one, there is going to be a discrepancy between how your player reacts on the edges of them. So if I put him on the edge like this, he'll kind of fall but still stick on it. And then here he'll start to slide off because I had him more off the edge than on it. Whereas up here, he can start sliding off pretty soon. Like as soon as he's past the halfway point, he'll start sliding off. Whereas this guy could go like a little more than halfway off and still not fall. Yeah, so that's just a minor discrepancy. Other than that, they work the same up here as well as up here. But if that edge thing is bothering you, I'll show you how you can fix that real quick. If we duplicate this guy, make him real skinny, and scale him down a little bit, where essentially what I'm trying to do is make this guy slick, and I'm gonna remove that sprite renderer component because we don't need it. It's gonna be invisible. So this main guy is going to have the default material, and crap, now I can't. Which one was he? This guy. Slick edge. Alright, so the edge is going to be slick, but the top and the corner that the player is going to be able to land on is going to have the default material. So if we just put the slick edge on both sides, like so, then we should have a material that's the same on top as this one, but slick on the sides. So let's test that out. Put this guy up here, put him right on the edge, and you'll see that he can pass the halfway point and still be on the edge, just like on the other platform. Oop. Yeah. So that's just some fine tuning right there. Alright, so now that we've got that out of the way, we've got our basic controller. We got, I should put slick edges on him too. But yeah, we got slick edges, got all that good stuff. Let's go ahead and add in the UI touch buttons so we can play this on mobile devices as well. In a previous video, I talked about how to call custom functions from Unity 4.6 UI elements. And we're going to use that same technique to call the move and jump functions on our player. So let's go ahead and create a new UI image. Make sure you have nothing selected when you do that, otherwise it'll add the image underneath that object. This thing's huge. Alright, so here's a button. Let's make that our move right button. Let's call it move right button. Let's add an event trigger component and add, let's see, we're actually going to want to add two, actually before we do this, let's go ahead and set this part to only happen if we're not on a mobile device. So we're going to do that with an Ifdef. I'm going to say if, oops, why did that happen? So that's pretty much saying if we're not on Android or iPhone or BlackBerry or Windows RT, then we're not going to run this function. But since we are, it will run this function. So for example, if I take that away and say if we are Unity Android and all this other stuff, then we run this function, you see it grays out because we're not on Android. Now that we have that, let's go ahead and make, what do we need to make? We need to make 2 more sections. Yeah, so real quick, let's go back to this event trigger and let's make a pointer enter, no wait, a pointer down, that's for, oops, pointer down is for when it clicks down and a pointer up is for when it clicks up. Right, so on both of these we're going to want to do something with the player, so let's do that. And the function that we want to call, we don't have written yet, and I'll show you why. If we go ahead and go to the player controller move function and we put in a value like 1, you'll notice this is on pointer down. So if I click down on this thing, I'm going to change its color so it's more noticeable. If I click down on it, nothing's happening because this is still active. So temporarily I'm just going to disable these so we cannot use the keyboard anymore. So you'll notice if I click down on it, he'll move, but even though I'm still holding on it, he's not continuing to move. And as far as I know, there is no event for held down. There is one for drag, but not one for just plain held. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to have on pointer down, we're going to call a function that says start moving, and then on pointer up, we're going to call a function that says stop moving. And this pointer up will happen even if the pointer is up, like over here, and not on the screen. So we'll be able to click on here, move away, let go, and it'll stop moving. So let's go ahead and write those functions that we'll need for this. I'm going to go back to MonoDevelop, and I'm going to make a new public void called StartMoving, and it's going to take in a type float, which we're going to call horizontal input again. And actually, we're not going to need that to be public because we're going to call this from our button function instead. Right, so in here, create a float up here, private float, called input. And it's going to initialize to 0, but StartMoving is going to set the input to be equal to the horizontal input, which is whatever we pass into it. So back here in the update, I want to say if input, actually I don't even need to do that, I just need to say move input. There we go. Right, so here, back in Unity, we could go to the player controller, back down to start moving, and give it a value of 1. And let's do the same thing here under pointer up and set it to 0. So on pointer down, we're going to set the move speed to 1, or the horizontal input to 1, and on pointer up, we're going to set it to 0. So let's make a duplicate of this and give it -1 and 0 so we can move right and left. Alright, so if I hold down right, I'll move right. If I hold down left, I'll move left. And I can even start pressing down, move my cursor away, and let go, and I'll stop moving. Yeah. So that's the kind of behavior that I want. Let's go ahead and add in the, let's call that the move left button. Let's go ahead and add in a jump button, which will be over here. I'll make this one green. And let's go ahead and make the other guy some other color. Alright, so this one, the jump btn, really simple. All we need is the pointer down, and we just need to call jump. Alright, so now you can jump, you can move, jump, move. Yeah, so this isn't very interesting to watch on a computer, or it's hard to control on a computer. So I'm actually going to fix this again back here. Let's uncomment that, and let's add on to this Ifdef thing saying else, else, and I think this needs to be like that. There we go. Alright, so since we are in the editor, we're on a PC, it's going to run these functions and not this one. Else, if we are on one of these devices, then it's going to run this rather than that. So if we go back to Unity, you'll see that we are able to move over here again with the keys. And if we click, nothing happens. Oops, except jump still works. But we also don't want these buttons to even show up in our PC build. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new empty game object and call it GUI. And let's just drag all that crap in there. Oops, just like that. So the images disappeared because they need to be underneath a canvas game object. And if you drag them out, then they disappear. And let's just make a simple script here, and we'll call it destroy on non-mobile. And we'll apply that here. Bink. Let's open that script up. And this script is going to be very simple. It's just going to do something on start. And that is destroy this. So it's going to destroy itself on start, but we only want, why is that not opening? We only want it to happen if this condition is true. And if. So now if we go back to Unity, make sure everything is underneath it, hit play. Oh, whoops, not this, we need this dot game object. This will just destroy this component. So hit play and boom, it's all gone. So now we can play the game on our PC with the keyboard and not have to worry about those GUI buttons wasting up screen space. Let's go ahead and build this thing on an Android device so we can see these buttons working properly as they should. Let's go ahead and hit Control-Shift-B to open up the build settings and add the current scene in. Oh, don't forget you need to save. Let's call this platformer. And if we hit Android and hit switch platform, it's going to go ahead and convert our assets to work for Android. And it did some funky stuff with my image compression, but whatever. And if we hit play, you'll see that these buttons remain on the screen. That is because we are technically on the Android platform when you see this little Unity symbol right here. We could also, if you wanted to, add in an OR statement over here if Unity editor. So even if it is one of these platforms, which it is Android, if we're still in the Unity editor, we're still going to run this script. So now, if we hit play, it's going to destroy those things. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and build this and run it on my Android device so you guys can see it working in action. Actually, one more thing I want to do before I build. I actually just built and realized that my images were really tiny, so real quick I'm just going to change this canvas scaler to scale with screen size so I can actually touch them on my device. I have made a video on how to scale these components properly using this as well as anchor points. I'll put links somewhere that you can click on. They're probably on the screen right now. They're there, trust me. Yeah, so you can click on those links if you want to find out how to scale the UI properly. I also am going to parent the camera to the player. Yeah. Alright, now I'm gonna build. Alright, so now that we've finally built it on Android, I can show it to you. This is going to be hard to play. Okay, let's see. Alright, so I can move, I can jump, I can move and jump at the same time. It's just like, there we go. Just like on the computer, except, different. Alright, so that is it for now. In the next video, I've been getting a lot of requests on not only how to move, but also how to animate a character controller. So in the next video, we're going to actually apply some character art and animations to what we just created in this video. Yeah, so, and it'll work for 2D and 3D. The process is pretty much the same. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if this is helpful. Subscribe definitely if you want to see the next video on animating the character, because when you subscribe, you'll get the news feed whenever I put a new video up. You can also follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, my website, devonnation.com. I update all those media outlets whenever I publish a new video. So, yeah, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.